Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we are going to be ranking every single Fortnite season. Before we head into the tier list, be sure to like and subscribe. We're currently on the road to 50 subscribers. Greatly appreciated if you'd like the video and subscribe down below. And yeah, let's get on into the tier list. Of course, as with every tier list, we're going to go through all the categories right here. We have the God tier seasons, which means the seasons that are the best of the best. We have the great seasons, which is seasons overall very good seasons, very enjoyable. Decent seasons, which means it was alright, it was okay. Not good season, which means just the bad seasons, or just seasons that were just not the greatest. And then we have the terrible seasons, which means seasons that are just dog shit. And then, of course, the sixth category is the I don't know, because there are some seasons that I didn't play. And the first two seasons right here, Chapter 1 Season 1 and Chapter 1 Season 2, I did not play those. I know that they were the OG seasons, and this is really when the game started blowing up. But other than that, I can't really have much of a say on them. But Season 3 was really when I started to play Fortnite. This is when I first installed the game on my PlayStation 4, and I've started playing about halfway through the season, and overall this was a great season for me. It's your first Fortnite season. You're always going to put it somewhere high. I had a lot of fun, even though I was absolutely atrocious at the game. I sucked. Yeah, even though I sucked, I still very much enjoyed this season, and I'm glad that Fortnite made this season for sure. Now we move on to Season 4, which is like the superhero season, or not Chapter 2 Season 4, but the Carpz versus Omega season. This one was God tier for me. This is an easy one. This is definitely God tier. This is the first full season of Fortnite that I ever played. This was when Double Pump was still in the game. Double Pump was in its prime with this season, and the map was expanding a little bit. It was getting a little bit more fluctuated, and the skins, it's also the season I got my very first skin with through the battle pass, and also with the pack. In that pilot skin pack, I forgot what it's called, but overall I very much enjoyed this season, and I wish I could go back and play it, since this was the first full season of Fortnite I ever played. This was also the season that shopping carts were added, and oh my god, they were so much fun. Up next, we've got Season 5. This one is also God tier. This was a major step up from Season 4. It's when the first true vehicle called a golf cart was introduced. The map, the southeast corner of the map turned to sand with Paradise Palms, which is my favorite location ever. They introduced new guns such as the drum gun and the LMG, and the suppressed AR and the P90. So many new guns were added. It was a spray meta, which was kind of bad for competitive. It's also when skirmishes started to be played. This season was pretty much peak Fortnite. Now up next we go to Season 6. So for some, this was a downgrade from Season 5. To me, it's a major upgrade. This is like a top 3, top 4 season for me. The new mechanic with the zombies during Halloween was really cool. The quad crashers were broken, and they're one of my favorite vehicles ever. They had that whole storyline around Kevin the Cube and all that. The skins were amazing. The battle pass was great. The map was awesome. Definitely one of my favorite seasons. Season 7 was a huge season for me. This, by the way, I'm still on PS4 at the time. This was a huge season for me because it was the first ever season of snow integrated into the map. And I thought that was amazing, with Frosty Flights, Polar Peak, Happy Hamlet, and by the way, I loved Happy Hamlet. That was one of my favorite locations. The whole map was covered in snow at this point. All of my friends were enjoying the game. This is one of the better times of the game. The planes were absolutely so much fun, even though they were absolutely broken. Drift boards were added, which is by far my favorite vehicle ever. They removed some of the better guns, but overall, I just had a bunch of great times in this season. It kind of sucked for competitive, though, because there was a bunch of flying hackers everywhere. This season was full of hackers for competitive. This season was also when creative was introduced, so this was a monumental season for Fortnite, of course. Now up next we got season 8. This is probably one of my favorite seasons ever. Top 2, top 3. You know what it is, top 2. This was really when I started to get good at Fortnite. I mean, I enjoyed season 4, season 5, season 6, and season 7, but I was only bad to like averaged okay at the game. Season 8 was when I really started to improve at the game. And also you have the whole jungle thing with the volcano. The boom bow was added, ballers were added, that treasure map thing was added. That was super cool. I completely forgot to talk about this in season 7. That was the Infinity Blade. I'm glad that's gone forever. But season 8 was definitely a top 2 season for me. It's rivaling one season that was in chapter 2, which I will get to soon. Season 8 was also when World Cup started, or when World Cup meta started. The World Cup qualifiers were going on during this season. This was one of the most diverse maps as well. Overall, it was a legendary, fantastic season. Up next, we've got Season 9. This is where there was a major fall for me, because Season 9 was only decent. I enjoyed it to begin with. I thought the combat shotgun was horrible, and I thought the blue tack would rule the meta. Turns out that wasn't the case after 2 weeks, and the combat shotgun became the most broken gun probably ever in Fortnite history. I liked the whole futuristic thing, but there was a few major issues that I had with this season. The battle pass had nothing to do with it. I thought the battle pass was really, really good. But my first issue with this season was the wind turbines. I get that you can move around the map easier with them, but the thing is with wind turbines is that if you're build fighting someone near it, it can really mess you up. They also increased the amount of ballers during this season, which was overall fine. It's just for casual players. It's just for competitive. This meta was kind of horseshit. This was also the season when Bugha won the World Cup, and also when Aqua and Nyrox won the Duo World Cup. Bugha won solos, Aqua and Nyrox won duos. But this season overall, it was kind of just meh. A lot of the items that were in the game were kind of stupid, and overall, it was just an overall okay, decent season. Not my favorite. And then we get to the nightmare that was Season X. This was terrible. Season X was terrible. There were good parts of Season X. They added the pump shotgun back into the game after everyone begged for it. Basically begged for it to come back. They added that Zone Wars LTM, and this is when Zone Wars started to take off. Keep in mind, I'm still on my PlayStation 4 playing. But the one nagging issue that this game had with Season X was the mechs, and the mechs ruined the fun. I get the whole idea of giving worse Fortnite players a better opportunity to win, but Epic kind of crossed the line with this, and if they're called worse Fortnite players for a reason, they just suck at the game. I think during this season, this actually had my lowest amount of hours, second lowest amount of hours. There was one season in Chapter 2 that had my lowest. The only positive thing I really have about this season was, one, Zone Wars was taken off, and I enjoyed that. And two, I was also starting to really get actually pretty good on the sticks. I'm a controller player. I'm not a mouse and keyboard player. I've been a controller player on my entirety of this game, and I'm probably never going to switch to mouse and keyboard ever. This was really when I started to stockpile the wins and all that. I did not get a lot of wins back in the earlier seasons. I only got most of my wins with squads and all that. But then we move on to Chapter 2, Season 1. This season was, I'm going to actually put this season in great. It introduced a new map, new mechanics of fishing and stuff. You could also swim, and the pump shotgun was so good during that season. The tack was really good as well. The loot pool was very basic. It only had your basic ARs, your basic SMGs, your basic shotguns. I really started to get actually I started to become a demon on the controller during this season. I was getting a little bit better with my edits and builds during this season. Also saw squad FNCS, and overall the main thing with competitive was squads, which I thought was really cool. Brought a lot of my friends back to the game. Overall, a really, really underrated season, and I really much enjoyed it. Up next, we have Chapter 2, Season 2. This is kind of what I was saying with Chapter 1, Season 8, except this is number 1. This was my favorite season ever, and for a very good reason. The whole agency thing, key cards, the stacked vaults, the mythic guns. This was my most Fortnite hours, my most played Fortnite hours were in Chapter 2, Season 2. This was what I call Fortnite's second peak because I thought the earlier to middle seasons of Chapter 1 were Fortnite's peak. But the game was in a really good spot right now. Even though aim assist during this season was really, really broken, controller players dominated this season. Competitive was overall really, really good. The meta was kind of shit for competitive, but no one really cared. If there was one season I could go back and play for one day, it would definitely be this season. My number one favorite season ever will always be Chapter 2 Season 2, unless they do something in the future that makes me play, like, I don't know, like 10 days worth of hours on this game again. I don't know. Moving on to Chapter 2 Season 3. This season was great. It's not exactly elite or like god tier. The one main reason for that was because of the shotguns. They removed the pump shotgun again. The charge shotgun I thought was bad at first, but it's actually a good shotgun. It just took time to get used to. They nerfed the tac shotgun so it wasn't like a 150 hitting beast anymore. The whole flooded map thing was really, really unique. The content during this season was really good for some of my favorite content creators. The battle pass was good. And by the way, Chapter 2, Season 2, going to backtrack a little bit, that had the best battle pass ever, in my opinion. They had all new mythics in this season. They implemented what was this one POI called? The Fortilla. I would land there all the time. This was also the season when boats were really, really useful. A lot of my Fortnite hours were also played during this season, and while it was not as good as Chapter 2 Season 2, uh, overall this is definitely a good season. Now up next we have Chapter 2 Season 4. This one was also great. It was not as good as Chapter 2 Season 3, and definitely not as good as Chapter 2 Season 2. Another big main issue with this season was the amount of superhero powered mythics or whatever you call it. The Iron Man Unibeam was shredding opponents in this. But they made this game fun. The movement in this game was incredible. You could literally jump across the map within a matter of like a minute. You had the Stark Rifle, which was super, super overpowered. The Pump Shotgun was dominant as always. They finally brought that back this season. I would drop Stark Industries every game and get 10 killed before I'd die, or I'd go get a 20 bomb. Competitive this season was really, really fun. We saw Mongrel on EU win FNCS, which was really nice to see considering Mongrel is probably my favorite pro player ever. I didn't think the Battle Pass was all that neat. This Battle Pass was basically one giant hashtag ad. Well, the season was basically one giant hashtag ad. Marvel, I mean. But overall, this season was fun enough for me to play where it was overall really, really good. Now moving on to Chapter 2, Season 5. This one was decent. You can kind of see the trend here. It's that as the seasons go by in Chapter 2, it's kind of going on a downhill slope a little bit. But Chapter 2 Season 5 was not a bad season. It wasn't a great season. It was overall just a very decent, solid season. They implemented the new sand movement thing and also the zero crystals thing where you could teleport or something. They introduced a lever action shotgun, and I thought this was by far the most balanced loot pool in terms of competitive. I really actually enjoyed competitive this season. This was also the season where I actually switched to PC. In case you guys, in case I didn't mention it earlier, Chapter 2 Season 3 was the final season that I played on my PS4. I played on mobile for a brief time. I was a mobile player for about 1-2 months. But when mobile got banned, I finally switched to PC. And Chapter 2 Season 5 was the first season I played on PC. But they added that integration of Salty Towers, or Salty Springs and Tilted Towers. They integrated that into one POI. I would drop there basically every game. This was also when my cousin started to play Fortnite. And a little backstory with my cousin: he actually was not allowed to play Fortnite because of his parents' like strictness or something. But when he finally started playing, and even though he wasn't at that all that good to start out, he was improving. He said this. He actually told me the other day that this was his favorite Fortnite season, and for a good reason. This was a very overall decent season. But then we go to the atrocity that was Chapter 2, Season 6. This to me was actually worse than Season X. This season was god awful, and I would never ever play this season again. The Primal season. I hated it. The new locations were kind of cool, but they took snipers out of the game. They replaced them with these shitty ass bows. Not all of them were actually terrible, but most of them were. The crafting system was like it was bad. It added a bunch of RNG into the game that did not need that already had enough RNG already. The battle pass I didn't really care for, even though it wasn't the worst. It kind of improved towards the end of it, but I never want to play this season ever again. This had my lowest played hours ever on this game. It got so bad to the point where I actually took a 2 week break from the game because I hated it so much. But then we go to Chapter 2, Season 7, which was kind of a sigh of relief, but it was still not. This was the first season that goes in the not good category. And that's because of the stinking UFOs. I hated the UFOs. And the railgun. It was a step up from the Primal season, but it still was not good enough. Definitely not as good as Chapter 2 Season 5. Now by the time that this season started, I had actually gotten a new PC that was terrible, even though but both of my previous PCs were terrible. And by PC, I mean they were both like just simple like work laptops. It was terrible. I had a horrible experience playing Fortnite during this time. But other than that, this season was actually like it was meh. It was okay. The game was definitely playable. The reason the Primal season was terrible was because the game was at one point was actually just really unplayable with the broken Primal shotgun and all that. Chapter 2 Season 7 wasn't really much of an upgrade. It was still kind of bad with all the broken guns, but at least the game was playable. Then we move on to Chapter 2 Season 8. I'm still going to throw it in not good, even though I actually think it is decent. I'm still throwing it in not good because this season was just boring. The Battle Pass was still kind of a hashtag ad. Every season, pretty much ever since the Stark Marvel season, was basically a hashtag ad. The Battle Pass didn't impress me. Do I think it's better than Chapter 2 Season 7? Yes, I think Chapter 2 Season 8 was better. It introduced the whole sideways thing. The Chapter 2 was coming to an end. The season was just overall a average season. It was a mess season. But much like Chapter 2 Season 7, these seasons were really, really similar. This season was it was playable. This was the season where you got on for like a few games, then you hopped off. That's pretty much it. This was also the season where I really started to grind competitive. I was grinding competitive in previous seasons, but overall, this was when I really started to become the really good player that I actually am. Don't mean to flex, by the way. And last but not least, we have the current season and the first season of Chapter 3. Chapter 3, Season 1 introduced a whole new meta into the game with all these new guns. To me, this was really the first refreshing season. This was the first real season that brought everyone back to the game. And so far, I'm enjoying it, man. I'm back on my grind during this season. I mean, I'm not a competitive player. I'm a content creator, but I play tournaments here and there for fun. I didn't really care for the battle pass this season. I thought it was just kind of meh. I absolutely love the addition of the Spider-Man Mythic. I think the Stinger SMG is one of the most broken guns ever, and I think it needs to be removed. The machine pistol is pretty much like a worse version of the Stinger, but it's not as broken. They're continually updating the game. They brought back Tilted Towers, which was a major W. At one point, half the map was covered in snow. It added a bunch of new POIs, a whole brand new map, a brand new, refreshing, fun to play map. The MK7 AR quickly became a household gun within the meta. The heavy shotgun returned and they massively buffed it, and I love that. Overall, I think the game is trending in a good direction, and this season is overall a pretty good start. Anyway, guys, that's going to do it for the end of the video. I hope y'all enjoyed. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace out, guys.